Great earnings, but not great enough for the street, still seems.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of, I feel like, a very recurrent narrative now, that you go into these earnings and it's always that, yeah, Nvidia is going to beat the consensus on Wall Street. It's not going to top the loftiest of projections, and then investors are going to be disappointed, and that's exactly what we're seeing this time around. But just in terms of the numbers, so they're saying that the fiscal first quarter sales are going to be about $78 billion. That was ahead of, as I said, analyst projections. The average was for 72.8. So quite a big gap there, but the loftiest was around $80 billion, so you're just shy of that. In terms of what we saw in the fourth quarter, again, the numbers were strong here. You can see there, well, that's the first quarter forecast, but also in the fourth quarter as well, revenue climbing 73%, coming in just over $68 billion. Profit, $162 a share. Again, that's better than what analysts had been projecting. In terms of where this money is coming from, of course, it's really that data center unit. It continues to be the major driver. Actually, we saw a little bit of weakness in the gaming division, which is interesting because revenue or sales there fell a little bit short of projections, which probably would have been a big deal a few years ago. But you're talking about, you know, $4 billion of revenue versus $60 billion plus for the data unit side. So it just very much pales in comparison, of course. Yeah,
the law of big numbers. And, you know, the relationship of the markets and the stock has certainly changed over the last 4 quarters. Talk to us about China and what their assumptions remain, or have they changed their assumptions in the China business?
Not really too much, essentially. I think they're just, it's still really just that big unknown for the business. Because AMD in their latest results, for instance, you actually saw them getting a little bit of revenue from China, but that was because they were selling much older technology. They haven't actually sold any newer chips as well, AMD, but Nvidia is still making no assumptions around China data center revenue in their first quarter sales outlook. They actually had a separate filing to the exchange where they did say that they've essentially been greenlit from the Washington side to start some small-scale sales of H200 chips to China. But I think the big caveat here is exactly still around how Beijing responds and will they allow companies to make these purchases. So, yeah, as Nvidia said in their earnings to date, they haven't generated any revenue under the H200 licensing program, and they don't know yet whether any imports will be allowed into the country as well.